The black and blue division is back. The number one spot in the NFC North up for grabs. A quarterback making an MVP push. The best running game in the NFL. On the other side, it's Packers Bears, and it's a crossover Thursday. Let's go.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome inside another crossover Thursday. Locked On Packers, Locked On Bears. I'm Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers. I am with our pal Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears. For Lauren, I was saying to my audience earlier this week, I think the biggest Packers game in over a decade, Packers Bears game, and I don't know if I can't think of a game that had more stakes for both teams. There's been bigger Bears games, I think, against the Packers, like that Mitch Trubisky season. They win. That was a big one for Chicago, but it was a bad Green Bay season. This feels like, to me, the biggest Packers-Bears game that we've had since the Randall Cobb catch in 2013.
And it'll be the biggest one we've had until 2 weeks from now, when we have the biggest Bears-Packers game. Like it's collectively, these two games are super critically important, not only for just like NFC North, who's going to be first place, but then also the playoff seeding that then plays off of that. Like, there is so much at stake. The other 3 games left on the schedule matter much, much less for both of these teams.
It feels like the cluster of games we had in 2010, where the Packers play the Bears the last week of the season. The Bears have nothing to play for, and Lovie Smith decides to play his guys, and they lose. They lose the game at Lambeau. Green Bay gets in. They get to the playoffs. We remember what happened in the NFC Championship game in Chicago. For anyone that doesn't remember, B.J. Raji sealed the game on a pick 6. It was actually Sam Seals who really, I had forgotten that game still, even after the B.J. Raji interception, still came down to an interception on the last drive against Caleb Haney. And the Packers won the Super Bowl that year. That comparison, maybe we can make it in a couple weeks. Maybe we can make it in 6 weeks when one of these teams is making a deep playoff run. So we'll hold off on that for now. Lauren, I want to ask you flat out, this team is the number 1 seed in the NFC. How good are they really, though?
So I don't think they're like, quote unquote, the best team in the NFC, but I also think we look at the NFC right now and go, who is actually really good? Who is infallible? And I think the Bears are right there in that conversation with everyone else. Like, I still find myself feeling like, even though the Rams just lost to the Panthers, they're probably the best team in the NFC, but beating the Eagles the way that the Bears did, and seeing the Rams lose to the Panthers, see the Packers lose to the Panthers and Browns. See, like, all these teams have lost to bad teams, Bears included in that. And so they're all fallible, and no one is this like juggernaut at the front of the NFC. So I think the Bears can beat any of these other NFC teams on any given Sunday, but also, like, no one's going to be surprised if any of these teams lose to each other.
Well, and here's what I've been saying on radio all week and on my show, and despite what Bears fans might tell you on social media as well, the Bears do 2 things at an elite level. And there aren't that many teams that do 1 thing at an elite level, much less 2. This is the best run team in the NFL, and they are the best turnover team in the NFL. Not just that they create a bunch, they do over 2 a game, which is crazy and will probably like come down at some point. But like, how many games are there to go, right? So like, at some point you've just banked. This was Luke Braun's thing in 2022 with the Vikings. Like, at a certain point, you've just banked enough wins that you get into the playoffs and it doesn't matter. But when you can do 2 things at a super high level, and 1 thing is definitely something that translates week to week, playoffs, the run game travels. And the way the Bears are running the ball, that's going to travel. They are kicking people's asses up front. And I'm just, it was startling watching the tape of the Eagles game, where it's just like, you and I could have picked up some yards in that game playing running back.
Yeah, and it's crazy because, like, the Bears still don't have a really solid left tackle right now either, right? It's not like, oh, this is left to right, the 5 best offensive linemen in football. I mean, they're one of the better groups for sure. They're playing at a high level, but like, they have a rookie second round pick playing a left tackle who didn't get in the starting lineup until, halfway through the season due to injury. It wasn't even like they were ready to try and force him out there just yet. And so they're living and dying.
Probably don't have an all-pro in that group, do they?
Say that again?
They probably don't have an all-pro on the offensive line.
Joe Thuney will probably be an all-pro again. I mean, he just by reputation, those guys kind of get it every year, and they're playing pretty well. And Darnell Wright has been sniffing in the Pro Bowl conversation we'll see. I mean, again, it's sort of like reputationally winning team with an offensive line playing well tends to get a boost there.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I saw Sean Ryan was like top 5 at center. He's played 2 games at center.
Yeah, there's always some flukiness to that, but like they're just communicating so well and on the same page. It was something that they were slow to get going early this season, and just like same with the running backs, trying to just kind of feel and read. Okay, how quickly does Jonah Jackson get to the second level? How quickly can Drew Dahlman, reach block that center, and just trying to find that perfect timing. And like now it's all clicking, and I think Bears fans are just holding their breath that this group can keep staying healthy because. A few of those guys have an injury history that hasn't really been a problem this season. So fingers crossed the Bears are getting healthy at the right time.
Yeah, Jonah Jackson, I mean, he was unbelievable against the Eagles, against a really good interior. Like Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, that's one of the best 1-2 interiors in the NFL. And it was like they didn't even play for most of the game. I mean, it was really a sight to behold. Now, the other side, like I thought, just between friends here, I thought Jalen Hurts was an atrocity. I thought the offensive line, the offensive design, like the Eagles, I don't know what's going on in that offense. That is like, if you watch the offensive design and execution of the Eagles next to the Bears and the Packers, they play a different sport. I mean, really, they do. Like, imagine how good that Eagles team would be with Ben Johnson or Matt LaFleur calling plays.
Yeah.
They wouldn't lose.
It's crazy to see like that kind of talent squandered over there. And I think on the opposite, you see
it's a shame. What a shame.
In Green Bay and Chicago, like maximizing talent. And that's not something we've seen in Chicago for a long time, where you feel like, wow, they're really getting the most out of this guy. And he really elevated the level of play of someone who you thought you weren't sure how great he was going to be, but wow, actually they're using him really well. And it's been kind of one of the big turnarounds for the Bears. It's just like even some of the same players that have been here for a couple of years are playing better. And I think on both sides of the ball, they're seeing like real coaching and development. It's a foreign concept for us.
I asked this question only like 35% as a troll. In your life, how many times did you go into a Bears-Packers game thinking the Bears had the coaching advantage?
Ooh, the coaching advantage. That there were definitely some times even in the Lovie Smith era, like offensive coordinator wasn't necessarily feeling like an advantage, but there were some Packers defensive coordinator days that I recall not being particularly impressive. I would say one hand. We can count on one hand. I don't know if I can recall all the specific.
I think the one I think of is 2018, because Matt Nagy was looking like, he won Coach of the Year that year, right? Who was the DC on that team?
Vic Fangio.
Okay, so then, okay, like Vic Fangio rocks. And so like that, I think you could make the case that year because McCarthy had overstayed his welcome in Green Bay, and that team had sort of tuned him out. I don't know how many other times you really could have said it, just because either the head coach was a dolt or one of the coordinators was, not an NFL coach, or like, you know what I mean? So this is a very different feeling right now for Ben Johnson. I thought it was really honest from Jalen Johnson when he said, like, this is probably the most confident we've been for one of these games, which is a tacit admission that he's played a lot of football against Green Bay where they did not have this level of confidence. And that makes sense, right? Like when you have success, it breeds confidence in your teammates and in the coaches that, hey, what we're doing here works. And that's a stark turnaround from anything we've seen in Chicago for a long time. And I really genuinely do not mean that as a troll at all. Like that's a real thing.
Well, and I think the big difference is like Matt Eberflus and Matt Nagy never ripped their shirts off after a win to kind of instill that confidence and get free hot dogs for the city of Chicago. Like, I mean, as much as like I've seen Packers fans kind of roll their eyes at it or whatever, like there is a real difference in the energy here that we haven't seen. I mean, Matt Nagy had them doing like a club dub in the locker room is what they would call it after wins, but like it was more just like a little bit of like a party. And this is more like guys are really like locked in, fired up, ready to go play another football game as soon as one gets done.
I think if you are the kind of person who thinks that Ben Johnson comes off generally as disingenuous, I understand how you could also view that as a put on and those kinds of things. But also, like, I don't know, a lot of the stuff that is coaching is artifice, right? Like it's all just an act. Like watch Dabo Swinney one time at the podium. Like, come on, like that's, you kind of have to have some of that. This is all fake. This is all entertainment. It's a charade in a lot of ways. It's silly, and it's okay to be a little silly. Like it's fine. Like Bill Belichick wore a cutoff hoodie on the sideline, for crying out loud. Like let's not be too serious about this.
Well, and that's the contrast with Ben Johnson. I think why why it works so well in Chicago is like when you watch him on the sidelines, he does not emote. He does not react. Interception, he doesn't get mad. Touchdown, he doesn't smile. He doesn't celebrate. He's not high-fiving guys. He is just like laser focused, locked in. And so then I think like after the game, he kind of just lets that out and kind of releases that in a way that I think the players can kind of feel that like it's that like party it's like business in the front, party in the back kind of.
So Ben Johnson is the mullet of coaches, is what you're saying.
Yeah, whereas like, well, Dan Campbell has the mullet like lifestyle, but Ben Johnson has the mullet like functionality.
Yeah, listen, I think spiritually Dan Campbell has a mullet. Like I know that he doesn't, but like I can just picture it, and it would have to be one of those like Jerry Curl mullets where it's like super curly, one of those like peak 80s mullets. Like spiritually, he has one of those. Let's get into some of the key matchups here as we get into Packers Bears on a crossover Thursday. Locked on Packers, Locked on Bears. Today's crossover Thursday brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. This holiday season is one of the best times for sports. Bowl games, big basketball matchups. We've already had some awesome games this week. Playoff pushes in the NFL. It's all happening. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right calls at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states. Plus, the early payout feature is a great bonus. When your lineup starts strong, you can get the option to cash out early. And my favorite feature, the stacks. You can pick the same player up to 3 times in one lineup. So you could take, for example, Jordan Love's passing yards, touchdowns, and rushing yards, and you've got a lineup, baby. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even have to win it. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. We're back here, Locked on Packers, Locked on Bears. And Lauren, I mentioned the running game earlier on. This Bears team uses motion. They use formation. They use personnel so well to dictate how defenses are going to play them. But they haven't had 200-yard rushers every week. So what is it about this offense that is either starting to click more or that you have noticed in general has been inconsistent, let's say?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that the Eagles game was definitely the best we have ever seen them play, and we don't expect them to keep playing at that level every single week there. But like, what works about it is like you mentioned the personnel and the motion, but like against Philadelphia, they ran outside zone like 25 times. Like, you know, for the offensive line and for the running backs, they're running the same play over and over again. It looks different to the defense. There's different motions. There's different guys going in different directions. So the defense is like trying to figure out who and where. But like the 5 guys up front and the running back all are kind of just running the same thing over and over again. And they have this nice balance where Swift tends to take it wider and then cut upfield. Monungai's a lot quicker to kind of just hit the first vertical gap he can find and get upfield. And Monungai's more of the physical run through the tackler kind of guy. Swift more the speed. And it's very much becoming their lesser version of what Detroit has with Gibbs and David Montgomery. Still, I mean, the yards were to that level. I still don't think the backs are quite to that talent just yet. But I think it's that combination of sort of simplicity and then, simplicity for the offense, complicated for the defense, and then being able to work play action off of that now the defense has to, like, just in case, be not 100% sure that, oh no, are they for sure handing it this time? Like, they just kind of keep the defense a little bit thinking more than reacting, and then you block it really well. Like, it's sometimes at the end of the day, it's just, hey, our guys are winning at the line of scrimmage and pushing your guys 3 yards back, and there's nothing magical about it.
So what's interesting about this matchup is we saw last week against essentially a Ben Johnson running game for the Packers. So how much additional prep goes into this? That's the interesting thing to me is the Packers just played the running game that Ben Johnson essentially created. Now, I love that your point about outside zone, that it's like, it looks different, but it's the same. And that's a Dennis Allen thing too. They're showing you something and it becomes something else. And that's what Matt LaFleur has always wanted to be. He calls it the illusion of complexity. Mm-hmm. It's not actually that complicated. And the Packers generally are in cover 3, but they're going to show you something else. And and you might not know who that post safety is going to be. They might show you cover 3 and all of a sudden they're playing non-traditional Tampa. These are 2 teams that love to play with what your expectations are. And that's what makes this really interesting. Now, the Packers last week and coming into last week were the best outside run defense in the NFL. Allowing 2.8 yards per carry on outside runs, not outside zone specifically, but outside runs. And last week, Montgomery and Gibbs 3.5 yards per carry average on 28 touches. They got to 100 yards, but it took them 28 carries to get there. They bottled up Jahmyr Gibbs pretty successfully in that game. Now, I think that Lions offensive line is not nearly as good as the Chicago offensive line, but I think those backs are probably better as a tandem than what Chicago has. So that's an interesting contrast here. Let's flip this, Lauren, because the time to throw thing with Caleb has been a big discussion point. I think, frankly, it is overrated in a lot of ways in terms of a discussion point because of all the long developing routes that they call, the play action. He was going to run around and try and make plays. So, of course, he's going to hold the ball a little bit longer. On the other hand, Micah Parsons leads the NFL in pressures, leads the NFL in quick pressures. And this is a quarterback who has one of the lowest percentages of quick game in the NFL. How do you strike that balance if you're the Bears? Because they're going to have to create explosive plays too. But how do you find the balance there?
Yeah, so I'm nervous about this because I think for Caleb this season, he's a very confident pocket maneuverer and usually is pretty sure he's going to be able to get away from everybody. And what we've seen this season is that he gets away from almost everybody, but the guys he doesn't get away tend to be the elite superstar pass rushers. He couldn't escape Max Crosby from the Raiders a few different times in that game. He couldn't escape TJ Watt and the Steelers a few different times in that game. And I worry that Parsons is going to be that kind of guy where he thinks he can get away because he usually gets away from almost everybody. But there's guys that are just a step smarter and faster than all the other pass rushers that they're used to that he has to kind of adjust to on the fly. And that's what I'm concerned about. Because generally, Ben Johnson doesn't put in a ton of easy button, quick throws. I mean, they'll run a handful of screens here or there, but this is not a simplified offense to just kind of get the ball out of his hands quickly. And I think that's part of why you see the completion percentage so low is because they're just constantly saying, hey, attack the middle of the field, throw downfield. Don't worry so much about, trying to be pinpoint on every little thing you do. We'll take the big plays and we can live with some of the mistakes or the missed throws along the way. But if you're getting pressure in 2.5 seconds, that's not enough time for some of those throws to develop. And that's when he escapes and tries to make a play. But if he can't escape Micah Parsons a couple of times, that's when the Bears can get into trouble. And we haven't seen that completely derail them in any of those games that I mentioned, but it's come close a few times. And it was easier to overcome against the Raiders and a Steelers team without Aaron Rodgers at a less margin of error when Jordan Love and the Packers are on the other side.
Were you was part of you disappointed? What percentage of you is disappointed that it was Mason Rudolph, not Aaron Rodgers?
That was a big debate among Bears fans all week. 50%. I mean, at least 50%. I think there's a feeling they still could have won that game against Aaron Rodgers, but Mason Rudolph definitely made it easier in that regard. But there was a lot of Bears fans wanted one more chance to beat Aaron Rodgers in Soldier Field. I
heard a lot of Chicago content creators that week too, also saying, be careful what you wish for. And so, and who knows, maybe that's what happens this week with this Packers team. The pressure part is fascinating because there were times against the Lions when they couldn't create pressure and it was, okay, here's the big play action shot. Now, I think if you're Jared Goff, 5 and 7 step drops are more de rigueur for you than Caleb Williams. That's just not really how he wants to play. He's back foot ball out, rip that dig to, Jameson Williams. That's not really how Caleb wants to play necessarily. And so, do you feel like there has to be an alteration in how they attack through the air? Or is this going to be hey, run the ball early downs? Because I feel like early downs are the game in this game. If the Packers or the Bears, if one of those teams, the Packers defense, the Bears offense, if the Packers defense wins early downs, I think it gets really tough for Chicago.
Yeah, so I think Caleb does. I mean, they're always pushing Caleb to put that back foot down and rip the dig like that. And you'll see a handful of those over the course of the game. But Ben Johnson talks about how in
the fourth quarter, especially.
Yes, definitely. But Ben Johnson talks a lot about how Caleb makes it so being Ben Johnson, don't have to be perfect. That I'm going to call a play, and if that play is not going to work in this, if the play works in the situation, then I trust him to hit it when he's supposed to. And if that dig's not there because a linebacker turns and runs with it or whatever, can bail me, Ben Johnson, out in those kind of situations. And it's been kind of trying to find that balance of when you got to just fire it in there, even if it's a tight window throw. And he's had a little bit of accuracy issues sometimes because the feet aren't, sometimes he sees it. He's like, I got to go. So he rushes it a little bit and he doesn't set the feet properly and it'll go a little high, a little low, a little in front, however. But then, there's other times when, he gets out of the pocket and creates magic plays. And even on some of those third downs where they're getting third and longs, Caleb's getting better at saying, hey, I don't have to throw this past the sticks because I've got Colston Loveland who can catch it at 6 yards and get us the extra 4. Or I've got DJ Moore, Luther Burden or something
Burden,
He doesn't have to go big all the time on some of those plays. He's more willing to check it down and live to fight another day, and really try and avoid negative plays as much as possible in those moments.
Yeah, he's avoided the negative plays and has escaped sacks certainly much better than he was doing last year. I just think in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10s, like Micah Parsons, Jeff Hafley has done such a great job of manipulating your protection schemes, meaning the royal right? Opponent protection schemes, where there was a great one against the Lions where they had an overload to one side and he was like, I bet they're going to slide to Micah Parsons' side. And they did. And then they dropped Micah Parsons. They got a free runner off it. And it's like, those are the things that you can do. The gravity from Micah Parsons has really started to show up lately, where it's like, okay, you want to send 2, you want to send 3 to Micah's side. All right, then we're going to start having overload pressures on the other side. So you can't do that. And then Micah's going to start making those plays. And that's kind of what happened against the Lions, where the Packers defense kind of like, it was boa constrictory. Like they just kind of suck the life out of that team by the end. And it's Micah Parsons having the sack. They're up 10. Micah gets the sack in the red zone and makes them kick the field goal. And the game is basically over from there, because the Packers take the ear out of the ball. Jordan Love makes that one throw to Dontavian Wicks to seal it. So he's been their closer. And this is, what are they calling him? The Iceman. It's the Iceman against Maverick Parsons, I guess, if we're gonna really torture the metaphor there. So let's get into the keys to victory, Lauren, as we do that next on a crossover Thursday. Crossover Thursday, Locked On Packers, Locked On Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network that Lauren and I have been a part of for a very long time. We've been doing this for a long time, man. Like this is, I think this is like our, yes. So this is what, our 13th or 14th one of these?
That sounds about right. Something like that. 2017 or so.
Yeah. I vividly remember doing the 2019 one, that crossover.
I had a lot fewer grays back then.
Yeah, well, but that makes 2 of us. And I had 2 fewer children back then, so also a good demarcator of time.
Yeah.
But this is going to be so much fun. Let's just remember, the rivalry is fun. There's going to be vitriol, and that's okay too. But like, I don't know if you caught it. There was a little shot from Matt LaFleur this week at Ben Johnson. He said something to the effect of, I should like have gotten the quote, but he said something to the effect of, basically like, Ben Johnson's a really good coach. Just ask him. That's not exactly what he said, but like that was the sentiment.
Yeah.
And this comes after Ben Johnson took a shot at Matt LaFleur in the opening press conference, even though they're not really friends. Like it's not really a thing. And so, look, if there's going to be some bad blood here with the coaches, like if there's going to be a chilly handshake, if this is going to be a Mike Zimmer, Mike McCarthy, like let's go. I'm for it. I'm ready.
See, I'm really curious how real that is and how tongue-in-cheek it is, because I think when Ben Johnson said it the first time, he was
trying to be cute. He was trying to score points.
Yeah, but I think there's also like sort of a smile and a nod of like an understanding that like there's a mutual respect there of like, okay. Yeah, like I like beating Matt LaFleur twice a year because he's a good coach and it means a lot to be able to beat a quality coach. Like I think there's like an undertone of like,
are you being a little overly charitable here?
Well, I don't know. The way he smiles,
he was trying to score some cheap points for the fan base, and he did it. That's fine. I'm fine with that. I'm fine. I just told you I'm fine with it.
I think both coaches realize, hey, that's a really smart offensive coach on the side, and I want to be better than him. And so absolutely score points for the fan base along the way, but also like I think they do legitimately have a lot of respect for each other in the job they do and know that, hey, this is going to be a real battle on Sunday.
Here's the real quote. And this was on Pat McAfee's show. So you're also like, McAfee creates an environment where you might just like find yourself making a joke like this. But Matt LaFleur, talking about Chicago, said Chicago's done a nice job of adding to their roster, and you get a good football coach, as he said himself, in Ben Johnson. Like isn't that exactly what I said? He's a great coach. Just ask him.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you got to.
Funny. I think it's funny. I think it's great, and that's part of the deal. Evan Williams. We talked about Evan Williams on the show yesterday as Packer safety, who I think is one of the keys. He's not like one of my keys to victory, but I think he's one of the keys to the run defense for the Packers. He's become one of the best run defending safeties in the NFL. He's so instinctive. He comes downhill with bad intentions, make sure tackles. But he was like, I noticed right away the first game against the Bears. The energy is different. The fans are different. Everything is different. And like everyone's got to know. Everyone's got to play to that level. And so we haven't talked enough right now about two things: turnovers and Jordan Love. And those are, to me, intertwined when it comes to the keys to victory.
Yeah.
Because I think if Jordan Love doesn't turn the football over, it's going to be tough for the Bears to consistently get stops against this offense, because I think this offense is really playing at a high level. Jaden Reed, we think, is going to be back in this game. He's been practicing. They opened his practice window a week before the Lions game. He did not get ready enough. But with the extra time, my expectation is Jaden Reed is going to play. Matt LaFleur was talking like Jaden Reed is going to play. He has made some really big plays against the Bears in his short, so far, NFL career. So if Jordan Love takes care of the football, to me, that is the key, because Bears fans get mad at me when I said this, but if you take turnovers away, 30th in EPA per play. Okay, forget the turnovers. 30th in yards per play on defense. So down to down, the defense has some problems. They create turnovers at a preposterous rate. So don't do that if you're the Packers. That's my key. Just run the good plays, Matt LaFleur. No, just don't turn the ball over, which is easier said than done. What are they? They're getting 2 a game. Just don't turn the ball over, and I think you're giving yourself a really good shot to win this game.
Yeah, and I don't know why Bears fans would get mad at you for that, because like it's very clearly obvious. Like the Bears have had 2 games that they've won where they forced 1 punt in each of those games. Like they're not getting a lot.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. It was the Raiders and the Commanders, I think, were those 2 games. Like, so it's like drives end in points or turnovers. Like that's been so much of the Bears, results this season, and they've gotten a little bit better at that as the season.
They're the 3 true outcomes of football teams.
Yes, well, and getting healthier is a big difference there. When you got Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon back in the secondary, and now looks like TJ Edwards is likely to be back this week at linebacker. So they feel like they've got some, they've got, as this is as healthy as they've been in about a month or so, and coming at the right time here. But from a key to victory standpoint, like that's something I'm really looking at, is like how Matt LaFleur attacks specifically the middle of the field for the Bears, whether Edwards is back or not. Like we haven't really seen teams, take a tight end vertically up the seam and really challenge them that way. Like AJ Brown last week had 4 or 5 of those deep dig routes behind linebackers in front of the safeties, and that's how he got 100 yards and a couple of touchdowns in that game. Yep. Now he also had an interception on a jump ball that was thrown to him. So like there's some give and take there, and the Bears get the turnovers to make up for it. But there's some real weaknesses in this Bears defense. And on the other side of that, like their pass rush is non-existent. With a 4-man rush, they cannot generate pressure whatsoever. All their pressure comes on blitzes. Dennis Allen dialed it up more against Jalen Hurts than we've seen all season, but like they kind of just dabble in it. But when they did a 4-man rush on Hurts, he was almost perfect. I mean, in terms of like completion percentage and throwing accurate balls.
Jalen Hurts also the most blitz quarterback in the NFL this season, because it's just not something he's great at. They've had really bad plans for it. I pulled the numbers for you. 31st in pressure rate, the Bears are 30th in non-blitz pressure rate, and 29th in pass rush win rate. That's just not good enough. Like that's part of the thing, is like when Jordan Love has had his issues with turnovers, it's been because teams have been able to win without blitzing. He's the number 1 quarterback in the NFL this year against the blitz. He's also the number 1 quarterback in the league this year from a clean pocket. So like that puts you in a bad spot if you can't rush the passer, right? Like, so what do you do? Well,
I think the hope is like Packers injured and inconsistent offensive line has some trouble. And like for the Bears, you just got to hope like, does Montez Sweat have he's been fine, not as great as they wanted to be, but fine. But like everyone else has been pretty non-existent there. Like they just, at some point you need somebody to have a big game, whether it's Grady Jarrett or Javon Dexter or whoever. Like they're starting to force.
Doesn't Javon Dexter lead the team in pressures?
I believe so, but there are a lot of like late pressures and cleanup stuff. Like it has not been a consistent, like, here's the guy on the interior that you really got to double team and watch out for. Like and a lot of it comes on like blitzing plays too, where somebody else gets picked up so he gets one-on-one and he can come free. Do expect to see slot cornerbacks coming. That's kind of the main thing they like to do. And they go to the dime package, and you got CJ Gardner-Johnson and Kyler Gordon out there, and they can kind of line up all over the place. Like I think they'll have a few tricks up their sleeve, but it's a matter of like, can those couple of pressure plays generate that turnover, or just like it's about like timing and efficiency when you do get the pressure, because the volume is not going to be there.
Yeah, it's that part of the cat and mouse game is going to be fascinating. How does Dennis Allen prepare for that? And Matt LaFleur has had some really, really good game plans over the years against Dennis Allen defenses. And so that's something that I think often of what he did, I believe it was 2019 against Dennis Allen in New Orleans. No Devontae Adams, and the Packers score 30 points because they're dialing up, quarters beaters with Alan Lazard, for crying out loud. Like, if they can do with Alan Lazard, Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs and Dontavian Wick should be able to find some opportunities down the field, but you have to protect. And so that's the thing here. I liked the Packers more, honestly, before I found out it's going to be colder than a witch's tit on Sunday. And so like that honestly, that makes me a little bit more nervous from Green Bay side, because I think that adds to volatility. Oh, all of a sudden, Mercedes Lewis in a playoff game is getting the ball punched out when Mercedes Lewis would never have the ball punched out in a regular season game. And so that, to me, makes me a little bit more like, okay, this is going to be a closer game than I thought before Thanksgiving. I'll be candid with your audience. I think I've told my audience this before Thanksgiving games. So before I saw the Packers play great and the Bears play great, I said I think the Packers are going to win both these games by double digits. I don't think that anymore. And the weather is a reason why. So I like the Packers. I picked this score multiple times this season, but when the Packers win, do you know how many points they score? 27, almost always, all season. That's been the magic number. I think they've scored 27 in wins like 6 of the 8 times they've won. It might even be more. And so I got 27-21 in this game, but I think it's going to be a close back and forth kind of game. And ultimately we come away feeling about the same about both of these teams as we do right now.
Yeah, I think generally they probably split these 2 games over the next 3 weeks, and I would lean, the home team probably going to win those 2 games. I mean, just the general.
We got Saturday Night Football in Chicago coming in 2 weeks. And speaking of being cold, it's going to be freezing effing cold in that game.
Yeah. So I mean, I certainly feel like the Bears cover 6.5 points on FanDuel right now, but I always just have this feeling like the Bears are going to lose more games this season, right? They're not going to go undefeated the rest of the way.
Their
schedule. If there's a game they're going to lose and all of a sudden play worse at, Green Bay is usually when that happens. There's just some kind of NFC North magic where things go poorly against Green Bay, and Green Bay plays some of their best football against Chicago. And like, I'm kind of, but the problem is I predicted the Bears to lose like 3 times in the last 4 weeks. I've been wrong all 3 times. So like, but the Packers
pick them to win this week. Come on, have some gumption.
Yeah, I mean, the Packers is like this like the last hurdle of like, I believe this team is good, but I got to see them beat Green Bay before I really trust that they're going to be able to beat Green Bay. So I lean Packers, but I think it's going to be really close and come down to the final 2 minutes here. And I bet it's going to be a case where like Jordan Love has the ball last, and that's why Green Bay wins. Like Caleb drives and ties it late, but then there's too much time left for Jordan Love, and then
honestly, it sounds great. Sounds like great drama. Yeah. I think it's going to be great drama. I think it's going to be a very I don't think either one of these teams is going to blow the other one out. I don't believe that. I mean, anything can happen, right? Jeff Jagosinski on our squad show always says you're eligible for an ass kicking every Sunday. I think that's apt. And we've certainly seen some ass kickings in this rivalry over the years. It's why it's not been a very good rivalry, Lauren. And so if we have a real rivalry now, I would love that. We'll be back with everybody tomorrow. And then after the game, big time post-game coverage, all that good stuff. So stay locked on Packers and locked on Bears.